We can learn a lot about ourselves and our evolutionary past by studying animals. But when it comes to language, this becomes very tricky. Our languages allow us to communicate anything that we can think of. Animal communication is much less expressive. You might have heard that honeybees have a kind of language. They communicate via dance, but they can only talk about one thing. They can only talk about where to find food. This isn't because they have nothing interesting to say. Many of the cognitive skills that we think of as human can actually be found in many other animals. So maybe the best way for us to understand why language works the way it does is not to look at how animals talk, but to look at how animals think. I'm Ryan, and this is Language of Mind. One theory is that universal features of human grammar develop from use. Human languages encode the kinds of things humans like to think about and like to talk about. They reflect common human interests. But there's another possible explanation. Chris Golston is professor of linguistics at Fresno State, and he thinks that elements in human grammar, things like person, number, gender, tense, aspect, the kinds of things that get marked on verbs and nouns, these things aren't unique to human language. These same concepts also exist in animal cognition. So maybe we can place the origins of human grammar in evolutionary time by looking for linguistic features in other organisms. One common grammatical category in human language is number. When you think of number, you probably think of numbers like 1, 2, 12, 900, a billion. But not every human language has this kind of numbering system. The Piraha language spoken in the Amazon only has 3 words for numbers: 1, 2, and many. This seems to be the most minimal numbering system found in any human language, and it bears a close resemblance to the way languages tend to mark number grammatically. In English, we mark singular and plural nouns, contrasting exactly 1 from every other number greater than 1. I can say dog if there's exactly 1 dog, but for any other value, 2, 10, a million, I have to say dogs. This is a system that's even more basic than the number terms of Piraha. Arabic is slightly more elaborate. Arabic marks not only singular and plural, but also dual. So Arabic distinguishes between exactly 1, exactly 2, and anything more than 2. The Urama language spoken in Papua New Guinea has an even more elaborate number system with singular, dual, trial, and plural. So not only does Urama mark exactly 1 and exactly 2, but it even has a category for exactly 3. This is the most elaborate system of grammatical number ever found. No language has suffixes that mark 4 things, or 5 things, or 6 things. The maximum we find in any language is exactly 3. This limitation on grammatical number most likely stems from a limitation of our subitizing number system, the cognitive mechanism that allows us to immediately recognize exact numbers of objects as long as it isn't more than 3 or 4 items. In 2000, Mark Hauser and colleagues tested the subitizing abilities of rhesus macaques. The macaques watched as apple slices were placed one at a time in opaque containers. Macaques love apple slices, so they want to choose the container with the most slices in it, but they never saw all the slices at the same time, so they couldn't compare them directly. Instead, they had to rely on their subitizing number system. What the researchers found was that the macaques could reliably choose a container with 2 slices over a container with only 1 slice, 3 slices over 2, 4 over 3, and 5 over 3. But the macaques would fail at 4 slices versus 5, 4 versus 6, and 4 versus 8. Macaques only seem to recognize 4 quantities: 1, 2, 3, and more than 3. In other words, they seem to be representing singular, dual, trial, and plural. We also have another way of representing number. In language, comparatives and superlatives, think big, bigger, biggest, seem to tap into a completely different cognitive mechanism, the approximate number system. We can see this system in babies. Babies don't have the ability to count, that comes a lot later, but they can tell the difference between different numbers of dots, if the difference is big enough. While babies can't tell the difference between 10 and 14 dots, they can tell the difference between 10 and 20 dots. This is because they're not using the subitizing system. Remember, that only works for 3 or 4 items at a time. Instead, they're relying on the approximate number system, which is based on ratios. And we also see this approximate system in, you guessed it, animals! Karen McComb and colleagues in 1994 tested lions' sense of number by playing recorded lion roars over loudspeakers hidden in bushes. I love this experiment so much. The researchers would play a recording of either 1 or 3 intruding lions and observe the lion's behavior. What they found was that defending lions preferred odds of 2 to 1 before approaching intruders. This shows us that the lions were assessing numbers using ratios exactly the way humans do with our approximate number system. And even fish have a sense of number. Many fish prefer larger groups to swim with, which requires them to assess approximate group size. Christian Agrillo and colleagues tested this behavior in guppies by putting a fish in the center of a section tank and allowing the fish to choose to join either a single fish in one section or 3 fish in a different section. When tested, humans and guppies showed almost identical patterns. In both species, the ability to discriminate larger numbers was approximate and strongly dependent on ratio. By contrast, performance in a small number range was not dependent on ratio, and discriminating 3 from 4 was just as easy as discriminating 1 from 4. Why? Because in these low ranges, both guppies and humans were relying on their subitizing number system. So we can see an almost perfect parallel between the cognitive systems we use to assess and talk about number and the behavior of a wide variety of animals. Human languages also mark person. These categories should be very familiar. We can think of the first person as the speaker, the second person as the addressee, and the third person as basically everyone and everything else. We can see this three-way distinction in Swahili, a Bantu language spoken in East Africa, with distinct verb prefixes for first person, second person, and third person. In language, third person refers to everything in the world other than ourselves and whoever we're currently talking to. Sometimes we use third person to refer to other people. That's what pronouns like he, she, and them are for. But many third person referents are non-human, things like dogs and cats and birds and insects. And most are even inanimate, things like trees, rocks, buildings, but also attitudes, events, and situations. The question is, do animals distinguish things in the world, things we would generally think of in the third person, from themselves? Navigation requires a sense of the self in relation to the world, a relation between an organism and the things in its environment. In other words, navigation and mental maps seem to require third person. We can see evidence of mental maps in rats, birds, reptiles, fish, and even insects. The Sahara Desert ant has an amazing ability to navigate directly back to its nest without retracing its steps. A long and winding path may take them far away from their nest, but they can still chart a direct path back home. This is sometimes called dead reckoning, the ability to navigate without retracing steps or using landmarks. It seems to require knowledge of where the ant is in space in relation to their point of origin, using calculations from the angle of the sun and distance traveled. Other insects rely on landmarks to navigate, which requires a different kind of environmental awareness. If you move the landmarks immediately surrounding a bee's feeding source, or a digger wasp's nest hole, it also shifts the position the insect will travel to. These bees and wasps rely on their knowledge of objects in their environment to navigate, knowledge that seems to parallel our grammatical third person. Evidence of second person in animals comes from interactions with conspecifics, members of the same species, doing things to and with each other. This could include behaviors like aggression, sex, submission, feeding, grooming, caregiving, and play. We can see evidence of second person when animals cooperate and coordinate their behaviors for common goals. In a 2009 study, Augusta von Bayern and Nathan J. Emery found that a jackdaw would follow another jackdaw's gaze toward concealed food, but only when that jackdaw was their partner, and not when the birds were unfamiliar. This is maybe a very intimate kind of second person, a close conspecific you can share joint attention with for a common goal, like finding food. Even some insects have behaviors reminiscent of the second person. When insect colonies relocate, some species use a process called tandem running to guide individuals to the new colony site. In tandem running, an insect follows a leader to the new site, maintaining contact using pheromones or by tapping an antenna on the gaster of the tandem leader. Studies have shown that during the tandem run, followers learn the destination and can then return to the old nest to become new tandem leaders. This process requires an awareness of a partner and coordination of actions between follower and leader. And this awareness may be the precursor for our concept of second person. Not every language marks first, second, and third person. For example, the Papuan language Urama, mentioned earlier, only marks two person categories, first person and everything else. This distinction is the most basic and the most fundamental possible distinction that we can make with respect to person. The grammatical category of first person relies on a cognitive sense of self. First person recognizes the self and distinguishes it from everything else in the world. This self-awareness to distinguish the body from any other bodies is widely shared among multicellular organisms, including humans. In fact, it may be as old as our immune system. Immune systems recognize what is you and what is not you. This is how your immune system knows when to mobilize and attack foreign objects in your body that might make you sick. This wouldn't be possible if your system didn't have some way of recognizing and distinguishing what is you from everything else. This basic sense of self, the sense possessed by immune systems, eukaryotes, and bacteria, is old. Really old. In fact, this extremely basic division most likely goes back to the last common ancestor of all organisms. That means that our grammatical notion of first person may be built on a cognitive ability that is common to basically all life on Earth, which would make it 3.8 billion years old. For reference, the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, so that's really, really old. The full three-way contrast of first, second, and third person is not nearly so old. The three-way distinction seems to be shared by virtually all animals, but not other eukaryotes like plants or fungi. That would put the origins of the full range of first, second, and third person at about 650 million years. Our sense of number is more recent. These systems are shared by a group of vertebrates that includes most fish and tetrapods and may date back to the proliferation of jawed vertebrates in the Devonian age 400 million years ago. This theory has an interesting implication for how we view the features that human languages seem to share. Our grammatical features aren't human universals, they're animal universals. These features didn't become part of human language because they represent common knowledge shared by all human beings. They represent common experiences shared by virtually all animals, and in some cases virtually all organisms on this planet. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more videos about language, cognition, the brain, and other cognitive science topics. I'll be covering a lot more topics in the future. I've got a big backlog of stuff that I'd like to do. But if there's anything you'd like me to cover, leave me a comment. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts and ideas for future videos. See you later.